Good afternoon, friends. I'm back. This is my first, more polished video, if you will. Um, where am I? I am recording here at the Paris Hilton in the gas lamp, courtesy of my lovely girlfriend. There she is. So what's going on is tomorrow morning was supposed to be her race for the hot chocolate, but that got canceled due to all the things going on with COVID-19. Instead of canceling the room, we decided just to go out and just have some fun. It's still a quarantine, if you will, but we're at least somewhere somewhat fancy. We're up here on the 12th floor. It is a pretty nice view. Downtown is pretty empty. Parking is free everywhere, which is pretty nuts for downtown. And I just said again. It is Saturday, March 21st. Nothing has really changed as far as orders from up top from the governor. They still say don't congregate in groups of 10. She's recording me right now. Oh, by the way, this will be the first time I actually do a video with someone else in the room while she's over there. So if there's kind of noise is going on, the TV's on. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but if she says anything or has her TikTok video go off, I guess we'll be able to hear it. What I have in store for you today is, from my notes from yesterday, is I decided I'd talk about kind of my personal recreational things, what I like to do, my hobbies, habits, things I like to do in my downtime when I'm not working or whatever. Anyways, so first I'm on the list to talk about is mentioned San Diego State, go, just like I mentioned. Although this room's getting really hot really fast. So I'll lose that. First on my list is reading. I like to read a lot. This is not something I started with. Reading, for me, didn't exactly come natural. How do I say? I had to learn to kind of read. I mean, yeah, we know how to read, the THE, when, all that stuff. But to actually enjoying reading books, that was a long process. And that, for me, that didn't really start till about 2008, 2009. At the time, I had just broken up with a girlfriend of about 2.5 years, I think, and I was depressed. One of my outlets that I'd picked up at the time was going to the gym, and I'd go to work, then go to the gym, then go home and fall asleep. I didn't have anything else to do in my life, so I decided to pick up books for some reason, and they weren't fancy books like I read now, as far as like academic stuff, political philosophy, but they were like fiction. John Grisham, Tess Gerritsen, the mystery sci-fi stuff, sort of stuff. I guess if for those of you not familiar, it's kind of like reading CSI Miami. Dean Koontz, he's another one. All these guys, like mystery thriller stuff. Come home and read until I fall asleep, which since I came from the gym, sometimes would be up until 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'd put down a book about a week. And these are the small kind of, I don't know why I'm putting it in my hands, but they're a little bit bigger than your phone. And they're like 300, 350 pages, 400 pages. I put them down in about a week. And this kind of parallel with going to the gym, I learned that reading was kind of like a muscle that you need to flex. That even though you can't pick up a heavy weight early on, you pick it up once. Yeah, it hurts after a while. But you come back at it after some time, and you learn to pick up something heavier. Reading is the same thing. You read something that's easy at first, then you read something that's harder. You might not get it, but you can kind of come back to it, and it'll make sense later on. Or at least, hopefully, it'll make sense later on. That's more or less what I kind of pushed through. Because after fiction, at least framed in the context of my life, I had just transferred into San Diego State, and I was a sociology major at the time. So right after fiction, I started learning to read sociological stuff, so social problems. Sorry, TV's going. like the issues of education, why they're not funding, and what's behind that. An author there is Jonathan Kozol, who talks about how school funding, which is still relevant today, is funded more or less by property values. That doesn't seem like a bad thing, but once you kind of plug two and two together, you realize that if property values aren't high, schools don't get that higher tax income for education. So poorer neighborhoods, which generally have lower value, funnel less money into schools, which therefore provide lower quality education. That's a quick synopsis of it. I don't want to go too long into that. Another one, gender gap. The second shift, basically, how women are more or less kind of expected to do the home thing, yet also work a full-time job like men do nowadays. That was very apparent in the 50s. Today, it's a little more closer, so to speak, but you can see that some places. But the second shift, that book, Arlie something. I gotta look it up, but I can tell you guys about it. This describes how women do twice as much work, but yet they only get half the pay, essentially, because they don't get paid for the stuff at home. And the traditional roles of males, basically, is that, well, I get to come home and drink a beer, which, by the way, is what we're doing here in Paris, in the Hilton hotels. Oh, yeah. Moving down the timeline, after I finished by the time I unofficially finished my sociology undergraduate studies, I decided to pick up a poli-sci minor, which I eventually kicked up to a major. And I eventually got into political philosophy, which... Oh, I skipped a step. Within sociology, I took social theory courses, which for me was really rough. But like I said, when it came to running or exercise, once I did it more, once I talked to with my professors, I learned to read theory. Now, theory... how do I put it in terms that most people think? Theory is like they're ideas, right? So it's not just, I didn't really think about this part too much. So people think theories, they think of a hypothesis and how the world works. But social theory is actually kind of highly academic in the sense that studies are conducted on how people react to certain things, and then they construct a theory upon that. So, for example, a theory off the second shift, there's a theory that women are underpaid for the work they do, which is twice as much. That would be a social theory built upon the fact that traditional roles of females have that second shift at home, yet also the first shift at work, while men don't exactly have that. That's kind of a small element of social theory. Now, I really enjoy that because there's the idea of roles that are kind of formulated at top and then they kind of trickle down. But then when you look at how things are constructed from the ground level, so to speak, and then you build it up, it provides a different theory. Like how things really are on the ground are different than how they are up top. And that really kind of makes you think about how it challenges how you perceive the world versus how the world really is. And then from there, you can that's another thing. But political philosophy, that's more or less what happens. So the question of, is the United States a democracy, which I think a lot of people who are educated definitely say it's not. There's not one vote per one person. It's more or less a republic. And even then, I even have this is like a bitter taste in my mouth saying the United States is a republic. Not just from the beer I'm drinking, but quite literally. But I don't want to go too far into that. But so after sociology, I learned to read political philosophy and politics. Political philosophy. Western political philosophy goes back as the Greeks. So Plato, Aristotle. That's pretty intense stuff because these are guys that 3,000 years BC are coming up with these ideas that we are actually striving to achieve. And it's amazing. Of course, they had it off, obviously. Who was it? Plato, his idea of the forms. How we have an idea of something that's perfect, and we always try to strive to attain that. Well, taking me back to 301A. Yeah, I don't want to ramble too much. Then there's modern political thought. so to speak. So after the Enlightenment, there's Marx, Hegel, all that stuff. Then there's postmodern thought. That's another thing. And I've learned to read through all these guys, and if you, in a sense, reading political philosophy is almost like a therapy for me, because if you think your life is completely like out of touch, or you feel like you can't do anything about it, and you look at these guys who, granted their conditions, and they're coming up with these ideas despite all their impediments, it's really kind of inspiring, and that's what I like. Anyway, that's reading. I feel like also I'm talking too fast, so I'll try and slow down again. Parallel to the reading thing, like I mentioned, is the whole gym thing. As I mentioned, the breakup from 2009, I was depressed. I just kept going to the gym. I think at one point I was literally just sitting on a stationary bike crying. Of course, people didn't know I was crying because I was sweating my ass off at the time. From there, I picked up running, which I got really good at. I wish I was back to that. I think I was running at about a 7-minute mile pace, which is really, really impressive. That culminated to when I did the La Jolla Half Marathon 2011. That was intense. That was kind of nice too. And ironically, my dad ran that race. I didn't even know it. And that's kind of like unofficially passing the baton. Which, side note, when I watch these videos and I watch myself move, I find it also kind of poetic that I move and look, my gestures, everything is like my dad did. It's like, did I really learn that from him? Because I feel like we're kind of distant, but maybe subliminal. That's another issue. 24-hour fitness. Shout out to my friend Christian, who I've given him credit before, but with him, I had the courage to kind of come to the gym even when I didn't want to, and I kind of learned my basic habits from him. He didn't teach me everything, but he inspired me to come early on and help me form my habits. So shout out to you. Not like you haven't heard that before. After a while at the gym, I decided to pick up cycling. I bought this truck bike for about $400, and I think at my peak, I was doing 35 miles a week on the bike, and I do it in an amazing time, even before work, and I make it back in time, and those were intense days. As far as all that now, I wish I could go back into it. Granted, this whole quarantine type thing, but unfortunately gyms are closed. In the meantime, I'm just doing your standard 40 push-ups every hour. Seems like kind of a lot, but there's actually a logic to the 40 push-ups, because there was a study showing that you can judge someone's heart by how they do 40 push-ups. So if they can do 40 push-ups pretty good, that means their heart's in pretty good shape. You can't do 40 push-ups in a good amount of time. That means you probably have some issues, and you might want to take a look at that. I mean, unless you don't already know what they are. That's reading, my gym and activeness. Next would be, actually gaming. So my first game as I was growing up that I really got hooked into, that it literally sucked my life into, was Final Fantasy VII. I knew it had an issue when in the game Gainsbourg, anyways, when Sephiroth comes down and he kills her halfway into the game, and I literally fell into depression. I didn't have a girlfriend. I never had a girlfriend at the time, but I felt like prior to that was the closest feelings I ever had towards the girl. I mean, I was 12 years old. From there, the entire Final Fantasy series I've always been a fan of. 8 was okay. 9 was kind of cool. 10 was cool. 12, I like 12. 11, I think, was the online version, which I couldn't muster the resources for when it came out. 13, 14. I remember 14. I don't remember 13 either, actually. I think 15 recently came out. I want to get into that, but I haven't gotten into that. Another game series I got into was Fallout. Initially I started with Fallout 2. This was back on PC. I mean, Fallout 3 came out for PS3. Fallout 4 came out for PS4. And there was Fallout New Vegas, which came out for PS3 also. I mean, I totally got into those games. But for me, it started with Fallout 2 on PC. And then from there, I guess you could say that was the beginning of my kind of infatuation with post-apocalyptic things. Obviously, I try to... Well, this is kind of changing. When I was in school, I tried to stay away from those games because I realized I have a bit of an addictive personality when it comes to video games. That when I play, I can play for hours on end, and it stops me from being academically productive. But now the school's out, I feel like I can get into them, but I just haven't done it yet. I guess I'm still kind of scared, if you will. But in the meantime, or since then, I've gone through obviously my fair share of phone games. The first phone game that really hit me was Pokemon Go. There's a couple of things from that because obviously I played the game. I was into Pokemon when I was on Game Boy Color, DS, DS Lite, all that good stuff. And then this came out, Pokemon Go came out, and I was on the wave basically. Actually, ironically, I wasn't even the first one to get the game. My girlfriend was the first one to get the game. And once I realized how much fun it was and how addictive it was, then I created my own account and well, everything else is history, so to speak. I played that for 2 years, and for that, my life went pretty deep in the sense that I really took off on the social aspect of it. I'd meet people just from playing the game, and if you guys are familiar, there's that whole thing of taking gyms, the initial gym system where you'd literally have to sit there for hours and take a gym. But if you do it with friends, you could take down level 10 gyms in like minutes. And even I am still technically Team Instinct, and even in an area like in an area or region where Mystic and Valor were predominant, there was a section throughout Lower San Diego where Instincts ruled it, so to speak, and I was a part of that. A lot of those chats that we started are still going on, although they're slightly falling apart in the sense that the game doesn't really need as much cohesion as anymore. But it's still kind of nice knowing that I've made these networks. But yeah, that's something else. Parallel to that, I was working at SeaWorld, and then when I quit, I realized that Pokemon Go had a steady drain on my account, and so once I lost my SeaWorld income, I had to give that up. My first game afterwards was Final Fantasy 15 mobile version, A New Hope. And these are basically MMOs, sorry, I'm spazzing what that means, but you basically play with other people online, and that kind of replaced the social aspect of it without actually going out to have the play. Although the game did have some pretty pricey packs, which I'm not proud of admitting to spending. That quit a while back because that game was, I think the developers on that kind of ran away with the idea of how to keep people hooked without spending a fortune, which I think I was definitely the wave that didn't want to spend a fortune or could not spend a fortune. Another game, Harry Potter Wizards Unite, which I'm still playing now. I think that's a softer version of Pokemon Go. Is that Pokemon Go is really developed into something that's really over-encompassing. I think they're on Generation 5 Pokemon, which is pretty crazy. I only played throughout the first 2, maybe 3. 3 I was already kind of tapering. Harry Potter is a nice little, again, watered-down version in the sense that I can do my dailies, I can stop. There are some events that I'll want to go out and play a lot, but then if I burn out, I can take a day off and not be completely, feel like I've fallen behind like I did in Pokemon Go. Aside from that, there's 2 other multiplayer online, which they're kind of dull without spending, and I don't want to spend. And I'm probably going to drop them soon, maybe. One's called Age of Z. The other one's called Last Shelter. We'll see how those go. Really, what else did I have in mind as far as hobbies, habits, all that good stuff? Oh, I'm a bit of a beer connoisseur, beer elitist, if you will. San Diego is, or at least it was, the microbrew capital of the world. At one point we had the most microbreweries, and I think the rest of the country's catching up, but I feel like this is where it started. I don't know if you guys noticed, the beer I'm drinking, Never Better, double IPA from Coronado Brewing. Initially I liked dark beers. Guinness was my kick. It was nice and smooth. I could chug it, be real cool, you know. Look at this guy, he can drink a lot of beer. And I slowly moved over to IPAs because I think that's a hipster type thing like if you're from San Diego, if you're a micro, you have to be into IPAs, and that's more or less where I've gravitated to. shows, in light of the quarantine, I activated my 7-day trial HBO Plus. What's it called? I don't know. But we started watching Game of Thrones, which is really good. I almost wish I got into it when it first came out, but I'm glad I'm waiting. I'm glad it's finished, so that now I can actively binge watch it. I know what to expect. I know where it ends. There's no hook, line, and sinker like waiting week to week when the next episode comes out, when the next season comes out, which I hate that feeling. So me and my girlfriend will be doing that throughout the next week or so. Handmaid's Tale, that was really cool. Back again to the idea of post-apocalyptic or political dystopias. That's really cool. And excuse me. The first season's based off the book. Seasons 2 and 3, they ran away with it, but I thought they did a decent job at it. Elizabeth, I can't even say her name right anymore because of how my girlfriend said it. Elizabeth Moss, she's on my radar now because I like her work there. I wouldn't say she's like awesome, but if I see her, yeah. Another show that we were into, The Walking Dead. I was hard into that for a while. I was watching YouTube videos on it. God, I'm sorry, I'm spacing out. There was that channel, the guy who does all the comics, and even did narrations of the Walking Dead comics. Oh, God, it's going to bother me. Maybe I'll talk about that later. But yeah, Walking Dead, I was into that. I was into learning about the comics, or reading the comics, following the comics, and then watching how the show kind of develops parallel to it. Comics and cartoons, kind of like in movies, there's a bit of romanticism there because you can make a character last as long as you want. Parallel to that on TV show, even though a character in the comics has been alive for years, it doesn't work on TV. Rick eventually gets old and he eventually has to die. Quite literally die. Andrew Lincoln is gonna outplay his role essentially, and they gotta kind of mix it up if they want to keep it stretching. Rick Grimes in the comic could be as old, and they can slow down as time they want, they can speed up as time they want. Humans are a little less tangible in that sense. So, watching season 10 come out, I think that they're officially at the Whisper War, which I know how events turn out. I know Negan will turn out to be a very critical role there, especially since right now Andrew Lincoln's not there, but Jeffrey Dean Morgan's there, and actually I enjoy him as being Morgan, the kind of redemption of Negan, so to speak. That's really cool. Lastly, I'm currently watching by myself Clone Wars cartoon series. Watching the last episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars. I can't seem to get enough. Me and my girlfriend watched The Mandalorian, which that's also really cool, which is, since I'm on a slight Star Wars kick, excuse me, since I can't get the new material, so to speak, I went back to the old material, which is Clone Wars. And small tidbit of news I also read up, which is kind of cool. Rosario Dawson was casted for the role of Ahsoka Tano, which that's interesting. One, I like Rosario Dawson. Two, Ahsoka Tano is arguably my most favorite character from Clone Wars, and essentially from Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon series. And wow, I'm at 23 minutes. That's really long. I only intended to be 15, but I guess I'll take it. I think I'll cut it off now because I can't spend all the time watching videos and stuff. For my 2 subscribers, I don't know who you are, but I saw you did shout out. I don't know, or maybe you want to let me know who you are. It'd be kind of cool too. I can at least talk to you, or maybe you guys want to call. I don't know, something. In the meantime, I guess I will enjoy my time here at the Paris Hilton Gas Lamp watching Game of Thrones, drinking my craft food, and my girlfriend's giving me a look like she wants me to stop. So I will see you guys tomorrow.